Hello, welcome to the Kidmin Podcast. This is episode 5. My name is Kenny Conley. I'm your host, and I am so excited to have you here with us again for another conversation around all things Kidmin. Hey, before we get started in today's topic, I do want to remind you we are still, we have open enrollment for our 2026 coaching cohorts, whether you're a Kidmin leader, student ministry leader, next gen family ministry pastor. This is the core and the heart of what Nick Blevins and I do as part of Ministry Boost. We love to be in community with other leaders, learning from each other and unpacking the things that matter most in leading dynamic and healthy, thriving kids ministry teams and student ministry teams and entire family ministry strategies. And so we're building a couple cohorts, and we love to have you as a part of this. We've pulled back a lot of things. This is I think our 5th consecutive year to do coaching cohorts as part of Ministry Boost, and we continue to tweak it to get it just right. We're doing some really exciting things this year, inviting some amazing outside voices to speak into our cohorts. We're actually running more sessions than we ever have, and we rolled back the price pretty significantly. So with coaching cohorts at Ministry Boost, you get access to just about everything we do with Ministry Boost, all of our content, all of our resources, all of our courses, and you get to do it in the context of new ministry friends. So we are running out of time though, and there's not many spaces left. So we love to invite you. You can check that out at Ministry Boost and grab one of those spots. I'd love to have you in one of our cohorts this year. Well, today we're going to talk about something that I'm really excited to talk about. It ties into volunteers and volunteer recruiting. Now, I know this podcast is still new, and we're still trying to figure out, you're probably trying to figure out, what is this? What are we talking about here? And because we at Ministry Boost, Nick Blevins and I and others, we love volunteers, we love recruiting volunteers, we're going to talk about that a lot. And so the conversation I have today is maybe it's a pre-volunteer recruiting talk. It's all about recruiting volunteers, but it's what you do before you recruit volunteers. Right now, more than likely, you feel a need, okay? This is true of kids ministry leaders just about everywhere. If you don't feel this need, then you're doing an amazing job. Like, you're doing this right. But for most of us, we have a need. We have a shortage of volunteers. We feel like, man, there are people that we need to continue to add to our team. And for some of us, that need feels heavy. It feels weighty. That you might feel overwhelmed. Like, how are we going to find enough people to do this? And I feel like every time I ask, people say no. And as people join the team, other people leave the team. So it feels like this impossible situation. And that's very true. And that's what a lot of people feel. Like you feel that you have a great need, and this need always feels big, maybe larger than life. It feels urgent, and it's never ending. Like, it just continues to as you fill 2 more people, you lose 2 people. So we oftentimes, we recruit out of an abundance of language. We need a lot of help. We need everyone. We're desperate. But here's the problem. I remember, and the reason why we're going to have this conversation today that I'm excited about having is I remember years ago, probably almost 17, 18 years ago, this became a light bulb moment for me. I was serving at a church in a next-gen family pastor role, and my children's director scheduled a meeting with me, and they shared with me about the abundant need. And they said, we need volunteers. We need to recruit stat. Like, we need help. We need a push from the service. We need all the different things that we can do. And I remember asking, well, how many volunteers do we need? How many do you think we need? And their answer was, we need a bunch of volunteers. We need a bunch. So many. And I was like, Can you give me a number? And I remember this person said, we need a buttload. Sorry for saying buttload. This has always stuck with me. That's how, and I remember asking, like, how much is a buttload? And here's the thing where the light bulb moment was for me. My bosses, my executive pastor was he was like from the accounting world, and my lead pastor, he was a chemical engineer before he was a pastor. I know, so strange. And so I knew that I couldn't go and sit in front of them and say, "Hey, we need some help. We need to recruit a bunch of volunteers." How many volunteers? A buttload. I don't know, so many. And I just realized that was a big miss, and there was like an importance, like there needed to be some kind of priority around a specific or clarity around a number. Like we need something specific, because here's what I thought. A vague needs, it just leads to vague plans. Like we need a lot of volunteers, so we're just going to try to recruit a lot. I think even vague plans, they could generate discouragement. And so I think that clarity, it creates confidence. It is so important that when we look at beginning a volunteer recruiting push or a run, or we need to be really intentional in this season to recruit volunteers, clarity matters so much. When you know exactly how many you need, I think it actually shrinks this mountain of volunteer. Like it gives us a number to shoot for. Over the last several years, I've had the opportunity to coach many churches, large churches, small church plants in this area. And there's, in particular, I remember a couple churches and leaders that I coached, and they were on the verge of desperation. They were on the verge of burnout. And as we had conversations about how many volunteers they actually needed, and we got clarity around that and set some goals around that, all of a sudden I saw a weight lift off their shoulders. I saw them breathe for the first time, and almost this confidence came of like, we can do this. Like we can do this. So there is something really beautiful about clarity. So I want to call this conversation clarifying the need. Okay, before you, and I think as a strong, wise, smart leader, you need to know what you're recruiting towards. Like you need to set goals. There needs to be clarity around this. So when you actually, when you don't know your number, here's some thoughts. Every yes, it feels small. Like it's helpful, but it feels small. And every no, it feels personal. Like you feel that pain. Progress, it's invisible. Like you don't really know that you're going, and your brain oftentimes fills in the gaps because of the lack of clarity. And you say things, your brain says things like, we're never going to get there. This is going to take forever. But if we know how many volunteers we need, you're able to say, hey, we need 12 more volunteers in preschool at 9:30, and we're fully staffed. So I think there's something really beautiful about having some clarity. And so I want to talk with you and map out how you can find clarity. This is a really simple exercise. In about 10 to 15 minutes, you can have crystal clarity around how many volunteers you actually need. Because that'd be interesting. Like right now, off the top of your head, can you tell me exactly how many volunteers you need? Maybe not. Like maybe you do, but maybe not. Maybe it's a vague approximation. But here's the exercise. Okay, you might just pull out a sheet of paper. You might pull up your roster, maybe your CRM, where you do check-in and assign volunteers services. You might want to pull that up. But here's just a really simple thing. Sometimes I literally just pull up a map of my kids ministry space. That's sometimes the more helpful thing. And I start by looking at my main service, like my fullest service where we're utilizing all of our rooms. And I just look at that map and I go room by room by room, and I identify how many volunteers do I need in that room this Sunday. Like I'm just thinking this Sunday, how many do I need? So I start in like my infant room. Well, we like to have 3 volunteers in there. So I'm just on another scratch piece of paper, or maybe even on a copy of that map. I'm just going to write 3. I look at my toddler room, 3. I look at my 2-year-old room, 3. Okay. Oh, preschool, I need 4 in that room. And I literally just go every single room and I write a number. And I'm not talking pie in the sky, man. It would be great. Like, or we got to account for the people who don't. No, no, no. This is just like on Sunday. This would be a successful Sunday if I had 3 people in this room, 4 people in this room, and I go through all my early childhood rooms. I go through all my elementary rooms. Now, you might do ministry like I do, and we do small groups. So I might have one room, but I have 4 small groups in it. So I got 2 leaders at that group, 2 leaders at that group, 2 leaders. Okay, so that all totals up to 8. And I just go room by room. Where are all my volunteers? Okay, then over maybe on the scratch side, I need 2 tech people in my elementary large group area. I need 2 tech people in my preschool large group area. I need 4 check-in volunteers. I need 3 buddies for kids with special needs. I need a host and a storyteller in each of my large group rooms. I got 3 worship people. Like go through and figure out all the people that you need to run a successful service, and do that for your main service. Once you do that for your main service, go to your next service, assuming if you have a second service. And sometimes the second service is maybe it's smaller. Maybe you don't use all the rooms. So you might need to modify, go through the same exercise again. Okay, in this service, where we have 5 preschool rooms at our main service, we've got 3 at our other service. So we're just going to modify that number. And so, again, this should only take 7-10 minutes. It's not very long. And then you total it all up. Okay, this is simple math. You pull out your phone, pull out your calculator, add it all up, and maybe we'll try to do really simple math. Maybe it's 50 volunteers. Okay, we'll try to. I'm not good at fast math on the fly, so we'll just stick with 50, a round number. Maybe you need 50 volunteers. Okay, you now know exactly how many volunteers you need on a typical week in your children's ministry. Now, maybe you already knew that. Okay, but that's fine. But there's clarity around that now. Okay, there's clarity around that now, and that number shouldn't ever change unless you add a service or you got a small group that gets too big, it needs a split. But for the most part, that number 50, that's your number. Okay, now here's the next part. Now it's time to pull up your volunteer roster, your volunteer list. I don't know how you have it. Maybe you use Planning Center online and you've got them all on a team, so it's easy to pull them up. Maybe you've got them in a Google spreadsheet. Maybe you've got them on a whiteboard on your wall or wherever it is, but pull up that list. Now, hopefully it's not on a scrap piece of paper or sticky notes. Hopefully you're a little bit more organized than that, but pull up that list of all your volunteers, because we got to do something really important as part of the clarify the need exercise. Once you get all those volunteers and they're all in place, I actually would prefer to put them in some sort of a spreadsheet. So if I got them in Planning Center, I'm going to export them out into a list and put them in, because I'm going to want to sort them in a little bit. But you do you. But let's have a list of all things. Let's make sure that this list is actually accurate, which is fine. This is why I would do this on a spreadsheet. And so I'm going to go by name, and I'm going to clarify, are they actually still volunteering for me? Are they on maternity leave? They've been off for like 3 months. Did they move to Florida and I never took them on? Like, this is a great time to clean up your volunteer list. So you'll be doing that in the process. But here's what you're also going to do. You are going to assign a numerical value to each of these volunteers. Okay, this is going to make a lot of sense in just a minute. You're not assigning value, it's a numerical value. As you go down this list, for every volunteer you have, you're going to assign one of maybe 3 numbers, okay? If they serve every week, you're going to write a 1 by their name, okay? You're going to write a 1. If they serve on an every other week schedule, you're going to assign a 0.5 or a half, however you want to designate a half, okay? And if they serve like maybe once a month, okay, you're going to put a 0.25, okay, 0.25. If they serve less often than that, get them off the list. They don't need to be on this list. They're going to be on your sub list. They're going to be on your special occasions list or whatever it may be. I actually, at my church, most of my volunteers serve weekly, and then a certain percentage, 20% of our volunteers serve every other week. once a month volunteers, a quarter, they're subs. I call them subs. They wouldn't be on this list. They would be on my sub list. But you do you. Maybe you only have one service, and so you have a combination of every other week and once a month. You do you. This is going to help you count. Okay, so go through your whole list and assign a value. And if you want to, you can sort them. You can sort them, and so that way you got all your ones, so it's easier to count. You got all your ones, all your halves, all your quarters. And here's what you can do. You're going to add them all up. Okay. All the ones real easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When you get to the halves, you're going to be like, okay, those two are 1, those two are 1, those two are 1. When you get to the quarters, it's going to be those 4 are 1, those 4 are 1. And you're going to, finally, when you add it all up, you may need to use a calculator because you're going to be dealing with fractions. You're going to come up with a final number. And maybe that number is like 35. Okay, I'm going to keep it a whole number. Maybe it's 35. Maybe it's like there's 50 people there. But when you add them up, because some of them are half, some of them are quarters, they come up to 35. Okay, this is really important. Why did we label people ones, halves, and quarters? Because when I'm thinking about how many volunteers do I need this Sunday, I'm only thinking of one Sunday at a time. I have 50 spots to fill this Sunday. When I look at my current volunteers, a volunteer that shows up every other week is only going to be there half the time. So I can only count them. I need 2 of them to qualify as a weekly volunteer. Does that make sense? If I've got a volunteer that's only there once a month, I need 4 of them to qualify as a weekly volunteer. So if I'm counting in the context of how many volunteers do I need this Sunday, I need a way to reduce all my volunteers to a lowest common denominator. So I'm looking for, if I were to count, if I'm looking at how many volunteers do I need in any given week, how many weekly volunteers do I have? Okay. Every volunteer is a weekly volunteer. Some of them are just half a week or a quarter of a week. Does that make sense? So when I add that together, and maybe I came up with 35, and I look at my need, and my need is 50. So this is easy math I can do. I am 15 volunteers short of having my 50 volunteers. Okay, 15 short. That's a lot. Like you probably, if that's your number, you probably feel that. That's like a third. And I would say that's not unusual. Like you might feel that way, but that's going to help you clarify. So any given Sunday, now you're filling in these spots on a regular basis with your subs and with these random volunteers. So it doesn't, which is what you should do. But this is going to help you. So when somebody asks you, how many volunteers do you need? Well, I need 50 every week. And currently I have 35. So I need 15 more volunteers. And actually how you would define that, how you would clarify that is because there's multiple ways to get there. If I could recruit 15 weekly volunteers, problem solved. We have enough volunteers. 15 volunteers would do it. But you may not be able to get 15 every week volunteers. Maybe, okay, this is where math is going to get a lot harder. Maybe you can recruit 10 volunteers who will do it every week, and you recruit 10 every other week volunteers. Those 10 every other week volunteers count as 5 weekly volunteers. So that's 2 ways. So how many volunteers do you need? 15 weekly volunteers, maybe 10 weekly volunteers and 10 every other week volunteers. Now it's going to get a lot more complicated when I could do once a month volunteers. And so does this help? Does it give you a little bit more clarity around how many volunteers you need? Now, here's where I feel like this kind of could be a blessing. Okay. This is going to give you some confidence. Right now, you're short 15 weekly volunteers, and it feels overwhelming. You feel like every week you are digging deep into the sub list. You're asking subs who really only want to do this once a month or less, and you've been asking them multiple times a month. Like you feel like you're burning bridges, you're burning out, and you're just wondering, like, how long is this going to work? And when you clarify your need, it allows you the opportunity to develop a plan of how can we get there? Like, how can we get there, and how long will it take us to get there? So like if you were a client of mine and I'm coaching you and your church of how do you get there, I say, okay, here's how we're going to break this down. What if of your current 35 volunteers, let's say that, a third of them serve. This is where the math gets hard. This is going to break down very quickly. But let's say a third of them serve, weekly, and the other 2/3 serve in some form of every other week or once a month. What if I say, you know what? Of my, let's say you have 20 volunteers that serve every other week, which means they only count as 10 weekly volunteers. Does that make sense? What if your first goal is I'm going to have coffee or lunch or breakfast, dinner, dessert, whatever it is. I'm going to have an intentional conversation with all 20 of my every other week volunteers. And my goal is I'm going to work to recruit as many of them as possible to become weekly volunteers. We believe discipleship is important. We want them to up their commitment to show up more consistently in the lives of their kids. What if I'm going to prepare my talk. I'm going to prepare my ask. I'm going to prepare the conversation so that way it's winsome, that it's vision soaked. I'm not just asking for a favor. I'm not just asking for more. I'm inviting them into a more intentional experience with the kids that they're leading. But what if I go to those 20 and let's say half of them say yes. So of the 20, let's say 10 of them say, yeah, I'll move. Okay. That's okay. So 10 of them moved over. Now you didn't just recruit 10 new weekly volunteers. You recruited 5. You just knocked out a third. So where you needed 15 weekly volunteers, you just got 5 more. Now you only need 10. Okay. Maybe say like over the course of the next 6 weeks, you're going to have coffee, lunch, breakfast with those 20 volunteers. Maybe you can team them up. Some that are friends, they serve together, and you can knock it out faster. Maybe 1 month you can have those conversations with all those volunteers. And then you decide over the course of the next 2 or 3 months, you're going to set a goal. I'm going to try to just recruit 3 volunteers every month. Okay. 3 volunteers over the course of the next 3 months is what? That's 9 volunteers. And I'm working to recruit weekly volunteers. My ask is going to be the weekly. I'm going to work hard at that. And maybe we don't get there. So then all of a sudden in 3 to 4 months, 3 months would be 9 new volunteers. Now, if all of them say yes to weekly, you're done. You converted your 5. You got 5 new weekly volunteers from your 20 every other week. Because remember, when they come on, they're already a half a volunteer. You're getting another half out of them. So the 20 is only again, the math is a lot. I could be wrong in my math. You could just say like, hey, you got it all wrong. Do you see where I'm coming here? So like this feeling of overwhelm. I don't know how I'm going to get there. I'm not sure I'm going to ever fill this up. In 3 to 4 months of working an intentional plan, converting half my every other week volunteers to weekly volunteers, and then recruiting 3 new volunteers a month. I'm going to be super creative. I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to do that. In 3 to 4 months, you're done. You just recruited your 15 weekly volunteers, and now you have a volunteer schedule where I need 50 volunteers, and I have 50 volunteers. You might even set the goal of like, hey, I'm going to look at all these subs. Okay, I got 15 to 20 subs. Who of your subs could you recruit? Now, recruiting them from a sub to a weekly volunteer, that's going to be harder. You might get a couple. You might do the same thing. Over the course of the next 2 months, I'm going to try to have coffee, lunch, breakfast, a conversation with as many of these subs. And I might prioritize. I got subs that maybe are a little bit grumpy. I'm not getting them, but they do help out when I need. They've made it very clear I can only do this every now and again. But maybe you got some other subs that they seem to really enjoy when they're there. Prioritize them. Maybe from your subs, you might recruit some of your subs that are like, hey, I'll go from serving once a month as a sub or once every 6 weeks. I'll become an every other week volunteer. Boom. You're getting closer. Just so you see how all of a sudden, not really knowing how many volunteers you need and feeling the overwhelm can make this feel impossible, make you feel like I'm never going to get there. But then when you break it down to figure out exactly how many you need, how many you have, how many remains, and then break that down into smaller bite-sized steps, anybody can do this. You can do this. Like you can totally do this. Now need may be greater. Maybe you need 50 more volunteers. Okay, more than likely, if you need 50 volunteers, you probably have more people to help you. Break it down the same way. If you have a need of 50, you probably have many more every other week, once a month volunteers. Break those down into steps. It might take you a little bit longer. It might take you 4 months or 5 months or 6 months. You can get there too. Okay? Clarify the need. Let's not live in a world of vague volunteer recruiting, but let's be really clear. How many volunteers do you need? I need 13. I need 17. I need 29. I need 15 in early childhood, and I need 23 in elementary. When you've got clarity around that, you're going to have confidence. You're going to be able to break that down, and you're going to be able to move towards, and you're going to get excited, and you're going to celebrate, and you're going to rejoice as you get closer. So before you have that next volunteer recruiting conversation, before your church does that next push where you're going to have conversations, or before you have an opportunity to follow up with those people who came to your new member class, clarify your need. Know what you need, and then ask with confidence. Okay? I hope that helps you. Volunteer recruiting is something that is key to our job. It's something that we never stop doing, but it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It doesn't have to tank you. Clarity matters in big ways. I wish you the best as you continue to recruit volunteers. Let me know, how many volunteers do you need in your volunteer ministry?